Hello. This is a quick video to see new functionality we added about being able to execute business actions for long running processes. It's documented here on the wiki. I added here this launch scripts part. We already had. We already were able to launch scripts using business actions. We had a run business action script which accepted a URL and would call the backend, do all the functionality and give you a message back. We accepted some formatting message, some different outputs for the message and the like, and the different parameters. And then we had that same functionality for the list view, where we had this run business action script from the list view. List view is a little different from the business action, this run business action script. The business action script is more thought or designed for these actions over here on the right, the detail view. And the run business action from the list view, this one, was able to do this kind of stuff where you kind of select this and it says, okay, you have to select one, that kind of boilerplate stuff, and do things like that. So it was basically the same idea as the run business action script. The only difference, you give it a URL and it sends the URL to the backend. The backend does whatever it has to do and gives you back the message. The problem is that, or the request, the new functionality that we're getting here now, is where we do this mass edit kind of thing. Okay, so basically we can select a whole bunch of records which take a lot of time to process. So for example, the mass edit does exactly that. If I change, I don't know, the assistant here, and I change this, what happens is that it launches the script, but it uses server-side events. It launches a script in the backend which will connect to a process in the front end that's listening for messages. Every time the backend updates a record, it actually sends a message back and says, okay, I did this one, I did this one, I did this one, I'm finished. And we have a nice update here on screen, so the user gets the experience of knowing what's going on. So there was no way of doing business actions with this functionality, with this custom pop-up and screen. So that's what we added this time. So now you can do that. It's obviously a little bit more complicated than just the URL and some code in the back end, because we have to implement the front end. We have to implement the script that listens on the messages and outputs the results. But it isn't really that complicated because we already have all the functionality and we're going to reuse the same screen that we're already using on the mass edit. So it's basically just coreBOS functionality. You just send the messages and coreBOS will open them up and show them on that screen that we just see for the mass edit. Still, we have to do something like this code that's here, where that's on the wiki. I'm going to show this working now. Basically, it's a custom script that you have to implement. You get the message and you get an event actually, which contains a data object property, which contains the message. You have to control the close event, which is when the process is totally finished, and you have to output the message for all the others. Here you can see that we use addLog, which is an internal function that does most of the work for us. It outputs the message, opens the screen, does everything it needs to do, and then we update the progress bar, which is something that I think should also be just inside addLog. We just send it in the properties, the percentage, and it should do it. But anyway, this is the boilerplate, and this one is basically always going to be the same no matter what kind of process you do, because it's basically just sending out, unless you need to do something when a message arrives, which could be also a functionality. So it could be a use case where you say, okay, yeah, when you finish a record in the backend, I have to do something else besides just showing a message. Then you would do it here in, well, not here, you would do it here in this part over here. Besides that, this function is really simple. The backend is a little bit more complicated, and not really that complicated, but it does have all the logic about what you want to do. But even that way, it does have some boilerplate. We have to have this content header, which is explicit for the event stream. There's a lot of documentation on how to do event sourcing and event streams and in the internet. And there's some links here on the wiki also about how coreBOS does that. And then we need this function, which is the send message. which is always going to be the same, so this is kind of boilerplate also. You just set up the message you want to send, and you give it an ID, which is mandatory for the event source. You send the data, which is the property we were reading on the front end, and you flush it out so that it can go and be sent immediately. Then you basically do all of the things that you need to do, your actual process, whatever you need to do, send emails, update fields, whatever you need to do. Every iteration that you do against the records, you just send a message, which is this here, this send message, which is this function up here. In this case, what I implemented as an example is what parameters does this get. Okay, what information does our backend script get to be able to do its work? It gets basically one parameter. That parameter is the server-side event source key, which I load here with this process key. Okay, here basically what I'm doing is, okay, I want to see, I'm creating a script. This script here is going to when I add the button on the list view, it's going to show me all of the parameters that my backend script gets, all of them. So the first thing I do is I loop over the requests, and for each request I send a message saying, okay, I got this variable from the front end. If that parameter is params, that key in the request contains the server-side event source key, which is what I'm looking for. So it's a JSON string. It contains 3 variables actually. One of them is the one I'm looking for. So I loop over this one also, these parameters. So I show these on the screen also, and we'll see that. I send the message to the screen also with those 3. And when I detect the one I'm looking for, which is the server-side event source key, I pick up the value and I say okay, and I go to the coreBOS settings key value store. This is where all of the records and the different options that the user has selected on the list view have been saved. Why do we do this way? It seems kind of complicated, but it has a really logical reason. The idea is that when I'm on this view, I can click here and maybe select all 1010. Okay, now I have selected 1010 records, and I'm going to get 1010 IDs in the back end to process. That is too big to send via a GET request, which is the only way that event source gets its values. We can't send a post to an event source, so we need a way to make sure that we're not going to exhaust the 64K limit that we have in the GET URL. So what we did is that, and besides, and here I'm talking about the 1010 IDs, which could be even big IDs. We could have numbers in the millions, so it's going to be a large string already. But we also send back the list view. What list view are these 110 selected on? Because if I select another address, another filter, I'm going to get this filter also. If I search for some, I don't know, for anything in this, so now I get a reduced set, this search conditions will also be sent to my backend script so that it knows that we're filtering on top of a filter. Okay, so we are sending a lot of information back to your script so that we can make sure that all of that information arrives. We send it all via post to the key value store and we save it there. Then we call your script and give you the key where we save the information. So you have to pick up the information, you have to get the key from the request, and then go to the store and get the actual values that have been selected on screen. That's what I do here. I get the key, I get the parameters which have been JSON encoded, and then I'll put them back on screen also. Okay, here I do the JSON decode and I do this. Oh, that's nice functionality. It automatically detects that that's PHP and sends me to the PHP website. Nice. Okay, so so I loop over the parameters that I'm getting from the front end and show them on screen. Okay, so basically the script is kind of big, and I can imagine that the custom scripts that you're going to make, this part is going to be even bigger because you're going to have to process whatever logic the users are asking you to implement. But it doesn't really matter what you do here. The only important thing is that whatever you do it and then you send a message. For each iteration you kind of say, okay, I processed one, I processed one, I processed one, and at the end you say, okay, I processed them all. I just for good measure, keep the database kind of clean, I delayed the source key here. It's a good practice, I guess. Not mandatory, obviously, but depending on your request and what you need to implement. Let's have a quick look and see how this works, and maybe that will get it just a little bit more clear. Here I have the list view script where I have my run business action script from list view server side events. It accepts the script name that I want to execute, where that, or the module that I want to execute, basically where that is, and the event sync. The event sync is the custom function that we implemented. In this case I named it custom SSEJS. I saved it in modules vtiger custom CSSJS, and it's just this run custom SSE function that I showed you before. And the PHP script I also saved in modules vtiger custom SSE, and it's more or less what I just showed you and explained on screen. So I have all of these in place and work and ready. So I go to my business action module. Well, here on the contacts I'm going to add this here. I'm going to add a button here and work with that. So we add a new business action, which is a list view basic, and this is my custom SSE script. And what we do here is, okay, I have that. So where did I have that? This is here. This is the action that we need, so I'm just going to copy that, and it's run business action script from list server side events. I give it the name of the script that I want to execute in the backend. Correct, no PHP or anything, it's just the name. So this would be this script here, this custom SSE PHP, this script. Okay, it doesn't even need to know where it lives because it's going to expect it to live in the assets module. So I'm going to change that to contacts because that's where we have it now. I'm doing kind of a trick here. I know that coreBOS will look in contacts for this script. It won't find it there because I copied it in modules vtiger, but by default coreBOS also looks in modules vtiger. If it's a way of sharing functionality between all the modules, you can kind of do that. So I'm kind of doing that. And then the last script, the last parameter of our function is our custom front-end script, the one that's going to receive the messages and show them on screen. If you remember, I showed that, I talked about that one, and it's this one, this run custom SSE script here. Okay, so that should be all I need. I'm going to put this on the contacts module, and I'm going to make it active and for all users, and this looks good. So now if I go to the contacts module and reload, I should have the button. Good, I have it. Still not going to work though because this run custom SSE script is not loaded. That JavaScript is on disk. It's in the project, but it's not being loaded yet. We have to add another business action. I'm going to duplicate this one. That way I already have the module selected and active and all this. This is my custom SSE JavaScript, and I'm going to use a header script or footer script, depending if you want to load it at the beginning or the end. Shouldn't make too much difference in this case, because by the time the user clicks on the button, it's going to be loaded either in the front, even head above or below. And here we just have to give it the path to the script wherever we put it, so that it can find it and it can load it. Wrong. SSE custom SSEJS JS. Okay, that should do it. I'm going to reload this page. Let's do an inspect here and come over here, and let's go to sources, modules. Yeah, it looks good here already. Modules, vtiger, custom SSE. Okay, I got it loaded. Okay, that the business action that loads JavaScript worked correctly, and I have my button. If I click on this button, I already get the basic boilerplate functionality. None is selected, so it gives you the same message that we always get. If I select a couple and click on it, okay, Okay, let's have a look at that, and if not, I'll show you the test I did before. Here we get the event stream. Okay, notice how this is the call, and notice how it has an event stream. It's not like this call here where we have the preview and get the response. Here we actually get an event stream where we can see the messages coming from that backend. And for some reason that didn't work. I called here, what did it call here? Context custom SSE. It gave me the IDs. That is looking pretty good. Okay, let's see what I did wrong here, because it has to be wrong on the business action. My custom SSE. Custom SSE. Okay, I'll have a look and see what's going on there, and I'll leave it back on the post on the YouTube channel exactly what I did wrong. And in the meantime, I'm going to come over here to assets, which is my favorite module for testing, and this is where I actually tested it before I did the video. And here we can see that it does exactly what I was expecting it to do. I selected 2, so I get in this case I'm doing the module assets. Let's have a quick look at the custom SSE contacts. Yeah, run. That looks good. Let's have a quick look at the ones I set up here. This is the footer script, custom SSE.js, exactly the same as the other one. And this is the one on assets, custom SSE assets, run custom SSE. Looks pretty much the same. Anyway, okay, so I selected 2, module assets, action assets Ajax, file custom SSE, these and params. Okay, these are the 4 parameters that I get natively just because of the call in coreBOS. Now the params is the actual message parameter that's coming from the run business action script. It gives me the module that I'm working on. Actually, the module you give it, where the server side event source is saved, the script, the action, which is in this case the script that we're calling, and the key. Here we have the key. This is where in the database, if we actually look at the database, which I don't have open here, if we looked at the database, we would find that key. Well, I delayed it at the end, so it's gone. Okay, anyway. Okay, this is saved in the key store, in the key value store in coreBOS, and then I get my backend script, the one we were discussing before, executes the get on this key and gets. Okay, well, first it shows me this JSON. It undoes those. It gets the key, goes to the database, and it gets the IDs, which are the 2 IDs I selected here. In this case, no excluded records. The view name is all, which is 53, and I did no search parameters, no filters there. So okay, so if we create a filter real fast, and we launch a search where the product name has an A. Did that work? I did it filter out. I didn't notice. Okay, 110, and with an A, 103. Okay, anyway, it's good enough. And now I select these 3. I press my button, and I get assets, another key, and I get the 3 records I selected, 93, which is the new view that I did, and the query parameters are true. I'm searching on contacts for an A as a basic search. So so basically you can see the functionality and the power that we have now to be able to plug into this screen here and do long-running processes for our users, giving them some feedback without really having to do much more than actually concentrate on the code that we need to implement to get these messages out on the screen. Thanks for watching. Hope that helps.